Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, October the 15th, 2024. So we've had more drama at a Trump rally, I think in California, where someone was arrested and he had, I think he had firearms and he had loads of passports. I think the passports had different names on him, and his name was Vem Miller, and apparently he's a member of the Sovereign Citizen movement, so he would appear to be someone of the right, and never could. And at first there was sort of talk about assassination attempts and so on, but he has been let out on bail, I think for $5,000, and I think if anything he would argue that he was trying to protect Trump rather than kill him. So we don't really know exactly what's going on, and I don't know what's going on. I'm just looking at the facts as I've read them on the news or seen them on the news, and what I just want to do is look at his horoscope, because we have a date of birth. So one of the commenters on this website, Sujata, she kindly let me know that there was a video out with his date of birth on it. His date of birth was October the 26th, 1974. So I don't know what time he was born. I don't know where he was born. It said he was from Nevada, so I sort of speculated that maybe he was born in Las Vegas, but who knows? It doesn't really matter because I don't know. I don't have a time of birth for him. So I'm going to look at his chart, and it's quite an interesting chart. There's a lot going on, and so that is my main theme for today. But before I look at Vem Miller's chart, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Tuesday, October the 15th, 2024. Just a reminder, if you enjoy this video, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. And if you're not subscribed, I would of course be super grateful if you were to subscribe. So let's look at what's happening today. So there, top right, is a picture of Vem Miller, and there were lots of pictures of him on the internet, and he's been photographed with famous people. There's a picture of him with Russell Brand, and there's a picture of him, I think, with Nigel Farage. So he seems to like to be associated with celebrity, and so that's him. But as far as today is concerned, here are the positions of the planets for Tuesday, October the 15th, and we can see that the moon is in late Pisces. So the moon is conjunct Neptune at noon New York time. So for much of the day, the moon is going to be in Pisces. Probably for many of us, all of the day, the moon is going to be in Pisces. And it's quite close to Skeet, that fixed star connected with disasters and shipwrecks. But maybe what we need to focus on is the fact that the moon is in a water sign like it was yesterday. We still have 6 planets in water signs, Sun, no, not the Sun, Saturn, Moon, Neptune, Venus, Mercury, Mars. The Sun is in Libra, of course. And so there's quite a lot of emotion flying around, and things are moving on an emotional level. In fact, you can see that Venus is trine Neptune, and the moon is conjunct Neptune, and in fact, you could argue that Mars is sort of still making it trine to Venus, and moon is trine Mars. So there's a lot of emotion flying around, and really, that's what the day is about. All that stuff in water signs, in particular, moon in Pisces. Now, London time at 9:34 p.m, the moon does move into Aries. So if you're in Europe, perhaps Africa, right at the end of the day, you feel the moon going into Aries. And that is quite an important change. There isn't quite so much water floating around. And with the moon moving into Aries, there's a bit of fire, because we haven't had any fire for quite some time, and now we've got the moon in fire sign, so there's going to be a little more energy, a little more get up and go with the moon moving into Aries. Now, moon moves into Aries 9:34 p.m. in London, so that means it's going to move into Aries at 4:34 p.m. East Coast of the United States, which would be 1:34 p.m. if you're in California, Washington State, British Columbia, and even earlier if you're in Hawaii or Alaska. So if you are in the Americas, it is to an extent a split day. The moon starts off in Pisces, but eventually does move into Aries over the course of the afternoon. So you might experience a change there. So that is pretty much it. I mean, there's not, I would have said, a huge amount going on. I suppose we have to say that, Venus was opposition Uranus yesterday. The exact opposition was yesterday. It's still in operation. You can see that Venus is at 27:24 Scorpio, Uranus is at 26:30 Taurus, still there. So a lot of the dramas connected with Venus opposition Uranus are still very active, and we might find that, for example, relationships take unusual turns, or some people might be very stubborn and very focused on how they are different. And of course, Venus is an activator. Uranus is still very much closely conjunct Algol. So Venus opposition Uranus might be perhaps activating Uranus. So we do have to watch out there. And at the same time, the Sun is still pretty close to that square of Mars. Again, the Sun square Mars was yesterday on Monday, but it's still close enough. And that Sun Chiron Mars T-square still in operation. There you can see Sun opposition Chiron. Okay, it's separating from Chiron, but only a degree and a half out, and the Sun is separating from the square of Mars. But we could probably say now that Mars is starting to really be on the Sun Chiron midpoint. So the concept that I was talking about yesterday of perhaps being concerned about justice and feeling we have to do something, not out of personal ambition, but just because it has to be done. There may be that feeling today, and it may actually be stronger today than it was yesterday. So noon, New York, you can see that the moon is at 27 Pisces, really moving towards the end of Pisces. Now, if we look at the picture for Sydney, Australia, in a very different time zone, as representative of Australia and New Zealand and East Asia, we can see that the moon is at 17 Pisces, so much earlier in the sign. In fact, mid-Pisces almost. So it's Pisces all day long, really, if you're in Australia. Also, if you're in Australia, notice that Venus opposition Uranus is pretty much exact. So that Venus opposition Uranus, which I was talking about yesterday, is really a feature of today. And I think I could say the same for that with that Sun square Mars. So if you're in Australia and New Zealand, in a way, it's a more active, intense day when you have to perhaps be a little bit more careful than, say, if you were in the Americas. So yeah, I think that there is a significant difference there between Sydney and Australia, New Zealand, but it's not a fundamental difference. It's just perhaps a difference of intensity. I just think that Australia, New Zealand, it's just a more intense day than it is in the Americas. Because if you are in that part of the world, you're kind of getting what the Americas had yesterday. Now, turning to the heliocentric picture, so let's just switch, and there we have it. There's now you can see that Mars is conjunct Jupiter. So today, tomorrow, there's an exact Mars-Jupiter heliocentric conjunction. I would have said that that was quite important. Mars-Jupiter is about action, energy, wanting to make an impact, and it comes at the same time as we've got a Sun-Mars square. So it is high energy. Things are happening in the world, and I think that we should expect events in the world's trouble spots, and not just in the world's trouble spots. You'll notice the dog is actually becoming much more active over the last few days. Someone was walking a dog right now, and they've just walked past. Of course, our dog has to go into overdrive. But anyway, Mercury at the same time and she's walking back, so really aggravating the dog. So that's what's happening here. So Mercury is moving to a trine of Neptune. Remember, Mercury is a fast mover. So Mercury trine Neptune, there is perhaps a little sensitivity around. And I suppose Mercury trine Neptune heliocentrically reminds us that the moon is in Pisces, that the moon is conjunct Neptune geocentrically. So there's a Neptune feel to today, and there's a lot that we can pick up on. But but it's just Mars-Jupiter conjunction is the main thing. Mercury trine Neptune. I'm not saying it's massively exciting. So let's now move to the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Tuesday, October the 15th, 2024. Aries. Aries, it may depend to some extent where you are. If you're in Europe, Australia, Asia, New Zealand, wherever, the moon really is going to be in Pisces for most of the day. And in fact, all of the day, pretty much. I mean, I know that late this evening in Europe, the moon goes into Pisces, but the day's pretty much over by then. So you may just feel that however active things are, however much is going on, you just don't want to get involved. And so you might just want to detach and disengage. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to succeed at disengaging, but I think that's going to be what you want to do. On the other hand, if you're in the Americas, then over the course of the afternoon, the moon does change sign. It moves from Pisces to Aries. And so with the moon moving from Pisces to Aries, you do start becoming more active and more assertive, and you want to assert yourself by definition if you're feeling assertive, and you want to make things happen. And indeed, I think, Aries, that you're happy to make things happen, to want to make things happen, and you feel comfortable with action. But as I've said, it does kind of depend on your time zone. Now, you can want all sorts of things or not want all sorts of things, but that doesn't mean you're going to get your way. The fact remains, regardless of your time zone, it is that the sun is still making a close square to Mars. And at the same time, from a heliocentric point of view, Mars is conjunct Jupiter. So even if you want to detach yourself, I'm not entirely convinced you're going to succeed, because you're just going to be aware that things are happening and that you have to be part of it. And in a way, the less involved you try to be, the less control you have. Because if you try to be a bystander, then it's going to happen anyway. And then you just have to respond, and you have to take action anyway. But if you're in the center of things, then you're more aware of what's going on, and you're perhaps more in control of what's going on. And indeed, you may be something of an instigator. You do have the opportunity to be an instigator, but I'm just suggesting that you may not want to be an instigator. So you have to sort of look closely at yourself and what is the right thing for you to do. And like yesterday, I was talking about this T-square involving Sun, Chiron and Mars. So this Sun, Chiron, Mars T-square still in operation. In fact, you could say that, Mars is on the Sun-Chiron midpoint, and Mars is going to be on the Sun-Chiron midpoint for a bit of time. In fact, I think over the next few days it's going to get closer and closer to the Sun-Chiron midpoint. And so Mars represents you, and it's about you trying to mediate the various energies going on around you. And you may feel at some level that you have to respond. And I think you're very aware of what's happening around you, and you feel it. You can try your hardest to be detached. And I said with Moon in Pisces, it is a sign from an Aries perspective which tries to be detached, but is it going to succeed? I'm not convinced. And I think that you are going to be very aware of the interconnectedness between things. And I don't think it will take much to offend you or even to outrage you. And if you feel angry about something, then I don't think you have a choice. I think that you may feel that you have to participate. So in a way, Aries today, you might find that you are in some respects an unwilling participant. But unwilling doesn't necessarily mean bad. It can be about you doing something that, well, you basically knew you had to do, or you know you have to do. So the best you can do, Aries, is to do your duty. And I suppose if you do your duty, what can go wrong? Taurus, you probably want to put a fair amount of energy into your social life, other people, what's going on around you. I mean, you feel that's the right thing to do. That does not necessarily mean, though, that it's all going to work out as expected. And, what we have is we have a conjunction between the moon and Neptune. And okay, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, it may be more of a conjunction between the moon and Saturn. It kind of depends to an extent on your time zone. But that suggests that although you try your hardest to be nice and sociable and pleasant, it may nonetheless feel that not everything is right. And it may be that just some people are just confusing you and even weakening you. Having to deal with another person's nonsense, that's not what you want to have to deal with. And so, Taurus, you perhaps have to be careful how you go. Not everyone is going to be good for you. And some people could just really be incredibly draining. And, that would be a shame, because in the right situation, you are able to communicate extremely well. And there's something about you that can be quite uplifting. Once you get going, once you find something useful to talk about and something that you find interesting, then people listen, and actually you're able to see the best in things and also the best in people. And it's just important that ability is reciprocated. You want to probably be with people who are positive and who are open to your message, open to what you've got to say. Because, you have got stuff to say, and the things you say could make everyone a lot happier. But that doesn't mean to say that, as I've been suggesting, that everyone is going to be receptive to your message. And as you move through the day, you may just feel that you've kind of done your bit. You've done whatever you can, and some people listen to you, other people don't listen to you, and at a certain stage you may feel that it's just time to switch gears and perhaps not worry so much about other people and whatever they're doing. If they listen to you, that's great. If they don't listen to you, well, really, there's not much you can do about it. Now, there are some important aspects going on today involving Venus, which is, of course, your ruler. So Venus is making a trine to Neptune. Now, that trine to Neptune, I think, is going to be exact tomorrow. And at the same time, the moon is making a trine to Venus. And those are really quite nice aspects. They do make you sensitive. And, you are kind of aware what other people are thinking and feeling. And ideally, when you go about your rounds, when you talk to different people, you're going to get different impressions. And it should be occurring to you that some people are worthy of more of your time than others. And it may be that, you have a natural rapport with certain people and you have zero rapport with others. It's like trying to communicate with a brick wall. And so do make your choices. And if you choose right, then I think that particular relationships can really develop and intensify, because there is just a basic rapport, and perhaps someone who is an acquaintance can turn into a friend, and someone who is a friend can turn, not necessarily into a partner, but perhaps a closer friend. So certain friends, certain friendships and certain acquaintances, they can get stronger because there is rapport and there is emotional rapport. And so do take advantage of the fact that there is so much in water signs today. We've got 6 planets in water for most of the day, perhaps all of the day, if you're in Australia and New Zealand and much of Asia, for example. So sensitivity in the right direction could, I think, be very useful. And at the same time, you are optimistic and you want to be in places where your optimism is appreciated. And in some places, with some people, your optimism really is appreciated. But I'm afraid in other places, people couldn't care. So make your choices very carefully, because the right choice can lead to a wonderful day. The wrong choice can kind of wreck your day. And I'm talking, of course, about choices about who you spend your time with. Gemini. Gemini, you do feel that you would like things to happen, and you don't want to waste the day. You want to be seen and you want to be heard and you want to be noticed, and at the same time you do feel that there's some kind of agenda that you want to follow through. And so, Gemini, it's possible that you're going to attempt to be quite disciplined. And yeah, discipline is going to matter. And you've perhaps felt more disciplined since Mercury went into Scorpio, because recently, over the last couple of days, Mercury moved from Libra into Scorpio. And with Mercury in Scorpio, you realize that you can't mess around, that there are, you've only got so many hours in a day, so many days in a week, and if you waste the opportunity, then things aren't going to get any better. So that's what you're trying to achieve. Then there's a question about whether or not you're actually going to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to do. And I think it may be hard work. And the reason it may be hard work is because there are forces around you which may be somewhat undermining. You're trying to do things in a particular way, but other people have their own ways of doing things. And I think there could actually be a certain amount of inconsistency. People say one thing one day, they say something else the next day, and it may be very difficult to know what to do. And the more you listen, the more complex it becomes. And I think, Gemini, you have to make distinctions in terms of what people are saying. I mean, some people might talk too much, they might promise too much. And you then have to make a decision about who do you trust and what do you trust. And indeed, where is the firm ground? And I think that is what you're looking for. You're looking for the firm ground. And the firm ground can be found, but it may not always be easy. There is a place, Gemini, where you are almost invulnerable, where nothing will go wrong and you can get your way. But there are other places which are not so good. And I suppose the analogy would be, trying to walk through a bog. That might be how it feels. I mean, I don't know if I've ever walked through a bog, really, but I suppose if you're trying to walk through a bog, there is a danger that you sink. But there's always a place in the bog which is, there is some firm ground. And you need to find that place where you're absolutely confident of what you're standing on. And once you do find that confidence, then you can take control and you can organize your life. Maybe you can organize other people's lives, and things should really start to run very smoothly, and you may find that you're given a certain amount of respect. And if you want to be a leader, I think you really can be. Also, I should say something about your abilities. And it does seem that through a process of personal transformation, you can start to understand what you're good at. And this can be a problem of Geminis. I mean, Geminis can be quite good at lots of things, but finding the thing you're really good at can be difficult. I remember, when I was, a long time ago, when I was leaving university, someone who I didn't know that well, they said to me, I know you're really good at something, but I don't know what it is. And, I'm a Gemini, and I think that really has resonance with me. And that maybe that is part of the essence of being a Gemini. We may appear to be good at something. We may appear to have a set of talents, but what exactly is it? And it can be very difficult for Geminis to really work that out. They can move from one place to another place, and they can pick things up quickly, up to a point, whatever it is. So if you want to learn Romanian, or for the first week of learning Romanian, you're going to make good progress. I'm just taking Romanian as an example. But then after a week, you've made as much progress as you can, and then it falls by the wayside, and you're just wasting your time. So you have to make your decision. That's actually, I'm telling you, as a teenager, I did actually buy a book on Teach Yourself Romanian. I did. My attempts to teach myself Romanian lasted a week, but yeah, that's being a Gemini. And I may be many things, but I'm not a linguist. I'm absolutely hopeless at languages. So Gemini, you need to find out what you're good at, and I think that there can be some kind of transformative experience which reminds you about where your real skills lie, and you need to be sensitive to that, be aware of it, because I think that you can tune into something really important. So hopefully you will have that moment of understanding. Cancer, you are quite open-minded at the moment, I think. I think you've actually been quite open-minded for the last few days. I'm not saying that Cancerians aren't always open-minded, but you understand that we live in a fairly complicated world where there are sort of lots of things going on, and there are lots of things to pick up on an emotional level, and I think you understand that. And right now you fully appreciate that you haven't got all the answers, and so you are, I think, more receptive than usual concerning alternative views, and I think that is really a very good thing. And so at the moment you are maybe in a process of discovery, and it may also be emotional discovery, but your sensitivity is really helping you out, I think, at the moment. And as far as the main aspects, well, the moon has made a conjunction to Saturn. It is moving to a conjunction of Neptune. So on the face of it, moon conjunct Saturn or moon conjunct Neptune might seem to be a little bit difficult, but you're a Cancer. You can kind of understand these things, and particularly with that moon conjunct Neptune, that does make you really very sensitive. Okay, that moon conjunct Neptune may more be a feature of tomorrow if you're in Australia or New Zealand, but it's still very much there. And so with moon conjunct Neptune, you are aware of what's happening around you. You're super sensitive, and okay, you could be overwhelmed if you get too close to someone, if you forget about emotional boundaries. But if you keep a healthy distance, you'll be sensitive enough to understand what's happening, but not so sensitive that you get wiped out. So that might be a way to approach a thing, and it's kind of an investment for the immediate future, being sensitive, because you're getting a picture. You don't have to do anything. You're just starting to understand the way things come together. And we are living in a complicated world, and there is a lot to understand. But you are helped by the fact Mercury's in Scorpio. And Mercury is a planet of understanding. It's a planet of communication. It's in Scorpio. It's in a water sign. You're a water sign. So you're able to understand things on many different levels. And it's not just about reading or studying. It's just about feeling, and just in the end, I suppose, knowing. I know it's not really about knowing. Feeling is not the same as knowing. You just get an impression and you're pretty sure you've got it right. 100% sure? Not 100% sure. 90%? Yeah, it's about 90% sure. You're 90% sure that your feelings are accurate. The only thing you have to be careful about, as I've already said, is if you get too close to something, then there's a danger that you get overwhelmed. And so you have to get the right distance. Actually, is really important today. So if you are too objective, or perhaps because you're concerned, you want to keep your distance, then you're not really going to understand what's going on. It's just too distant, and it doesn't really affect you. If you get too close, obviously you will be overwhelmed, and you will not be able to accurately understand what's happening. Again, if you're too far away, same thing. So you have to find a sweet spot. You get close to the object of inquiry, but not so close that you get overwhelmed by it. So Cancer, I do think that you can get the balance right, and perhaps that's what you need to do. That's perhaps your task for today. Getting close, not too close, just close enough to be able to understand accurate and have a high level of accuracy in terms of realizing what it's all about. And then at some stage today, if you're in the Americas, the moon moves into Aries. Now, moon will move into Aries very late in the day if you're in Europe or Africa, very late, so late that you might well have gone to bed by the time moon goes into Aries. So if you're not in the Americas, moon going into Aries is probably about tomorrow. Of course, I'll be talking about moon in Aries tomorrow. But if you are in the Americas, then this afternoon there is a change. Moon moves from Pisces to Aries, and I think that you become more focused, you become more definite, and your researches and your plans and your feelings and your inspirations, they all start to become clear. You start to realize that you had made that investment in terms of knowledge, including emotional knowledge, and now it becomes clear. And so where there was a little bit of uncertainty, you kind of thought you knew the answer, but you weren't absolutely sure about it. Late in the day, suddenly it's clear. You feel absolutely certain that you know the answer. And that's in the Americas, could be in Europe very late in the day, and that's going to be about tomorrow if you're in Asia or Australasia. But anyway, I will be talking about that when I do the horoscopes for the 12 signs for Wednesday. Leo, you are continuing to take yourself seriously, I believe. You take the view that life is serious and things have to be done properly. And I think you may be impatient of other people's mistakes and, when other people get things wrong. And so you may feel that you're the one who knows best, and I think that, you're going to have a strong sense of your own authority. Now, that might sound like a bad thing, but it needn't be. There do seem to be certain areas where you really do know what you're doing, and you shouldn't be afraid of establishing your authority. Your authority can be quite transformative. And if your intentions are pure, if you're doing things for the good of everyone, then I'm confident that it's going to work out. And you just have to always ask yourself what your own motive is. Always important to question your motive. If your motive is about supporting your own ego, then of course it's not going to work out, because that's not the right place in which you can really establish yourself. You are making yourself vulnerable, and you might even, I suppose, in certain situations, be making yourself ridiculous. But if you're doing it for the common good, if you're thinking about what is best for everyone, if that is your focus, then I can't really see how things can go wrong. And get it right, people are going to listen to you. And you, I think, at the moment, are aware of what's wrong with the world. And I think that that's going to be intensified by the fact that the Sun continues to make an opposition to Chiron, and in fact it continues to make a square to Mars. That does make you an assertive person who has a set of beliefs, and you don't want to keep your beliefs to yourself. And it's not just about beliefs and inspiration. I think that you have a sense of how things should be done, and that may not just be about making the world a better place. It just might be just how we relate to the rules and regulations that we all have to live under. And your understanding of the rules and regulations at the moment is, I think, quite good. So I think in many respects, Leo, you're quite a trustworthy person. And that does give you, though, a special responsibility. That's what I was meaning when I was saying right at the beginning, talking about your ego. It's not about your ego. It's not about you. It's about some higher goal, something that is not. It's something that is perhaps about, at the very least, about the interests of the group, or certainly people outside yourself. So overall, Leo, I do think a serious approach should serve you well. And if you get it right, I don't think that anyone can complain. Still, there is stuff that needs to be processed. You understand that the world in which you're living in is complicated. And I think that what you might find somewhat overwhelming is the fact that there is just so much water. Water doesn't fly around. I suppose water floats around, or it's just there. And there is a lot of emotion around you. And it's a situation that I don't think that you're entirely comfortable with, because it's not how you operate. Having to deal with people's feelings, not just people's feelings, but the world's feelings, the feelings of society, the feelings of the world. It's quite difficult to work it all out, and it's just been going on for so long, and we've just got six planets in water signs. It's just getting a bit too much for the average Leo. Now, fortunately, the moon is about to move into Aries, and it could move into Aries tomorrow if you're in Australia or New Zealand, or it could go into Aries this afternoon if you're in the Americas. So if you're in the Americas, it seems that the intensity of all of this water is about to change this afternoon, and you may feel that in the last half of the day things do become less complicated, and you feel that you have more of a chance to be yourself. And if you're in Europe, late in the day, late in the evening, bedtime almost, the moon moves into Aries. And so for a Leo, that just does sort of break up the intensity, and I think it just does make it easier for you to function. But still, Leo, you have a good understanding of the demands of the time in which you live, and I do think at the moment your judgment is very good, and also with that Sun opposition Chiron, even with the Sun square Mars, I think your moral compass is finely tuned, and you really do have a very strong sense of what is right and what is wrong, and that means that you can do something to create change and perhaps wake people up. I think you can wake people up. If people are deluded, if people are doing something which is wrong or is unethical, you may be just the person to tell them that they're being out of order. Virgo. Virgo, there is still activity in Pisces, which is your opposite sign. So it is a time when Virgos do have to consider other people and what other people are up to. And I think there may be a certain sense in which it's all too much. I think if you have to spend too much time with people, it's just going to get draining. I mean, you try your best, and I think that in social situations, you are very effective and you are very sensitive. You know, we've got the moon is trying Venus, Venus is trying Neptune. You know, these are nice aspects which I think that Virgo is able to tune into, and so you can respond. But then the trouble is, Virgo, that you might just be responding all the time, and if it's a constant process of response, then you might end up feeling quite drained. And I suppose you might then be asking, you know, where does it stop? When can you start actually looking after yourself? And perhaps that's what matters, and that's perhaps what your real focus should be. It should be, although it is possible that the right people today can look after you, because the action is happening in Pisces, in your opposite sign. So it may be that the right people can make you feel more comfortable, can, you know, understand what you need, and ideally have a sense of your likes and dislikes. And, you know, understanding, when you've got people that understand you, it makes such a big difference. It's actually quite difficult to find people that really understand you. I mean, it may actually be impossible to be understood, actually, because our own mental and emotional worlds are so complicated that finding someone to understand, however much we know them, they might not understand. And so today, Virgo, you might just get a little glimpse that someone is at least trying to engage with who you are as a person. Now, in terms of understanding, you know, the one person you would expect to be able to understand you is you yourself. And I suppose life is a journey of self-understanding. And self-understanding for you is, at the moment, is actually quite important, because it's about understanding what you are good at. And, you know, you might have many ideas about what you're good at, but you are a perfectionist. And because you're a perfectionist, you may feel that there are things that you are, you know, things that you actually, well, in reality, are good at, but you dismiss it. It's not good enough. And so, Virgo, I would urge you to consider yourself and what you do and the things that you do well, and to change the way you perceive yourself, and particularly change the way you perceive your abilities, because it does seem that there is some aspect of who you are that you're underestimating or you're discounting. And today, I think you have a chance to have another look at it and to realize that what you've got is quite unique, and that if you're able to bring it out and start putting it into action, then, you know, you'll start to see how unique it is, that you've got something that really no one else has. And, you know, when you start putting into practice, you know, be making your own life better, but also I think you'll be making other people's life better as well. So Virgo, it's important not to be too harsh on yourself. Now, late in the day, the moon does move out of Pisces. Okay, it could be tomorrow if you're in Australia or New Zealand or Asia, but eventually the moon moves out of Pisces into Aries. And that movement into Aries is going to create a bit of a change. I think you might find that you are less reliant on other people. You are starting to be more focused on yourself, and also more focused on some of life's, how shall I put it, some of life's everyday complications. We come across them all the time, regardless of our sign. But still, today, tomorrow, you're going to become aware of some of life's everyday complications. And I don't think you're going to be particularly bothered by them. You're going to just deal with them, I hope, in a matter-of-fact way. And once you start engaging with something that is complicated, you will, I think, be able to simplify it very easily. And I think it's because you'll be able to take an initiative that perhaps other people are afraid to take. You'll say, well, this has got to be done. If we want to resolve this complication, we have to start somewhere. And Virgo will know when to start. And once you make your start, then everything else will just flow very smoothly. Libra. Libra, you are in some respects feeling that things are going to get better. Maybe for yourself, maybe for other people, but there is just this fundamental optimism to you at the moment. And this is reflected in the way you think and in the way you communicate. Now, okay, I understand there's plenty to be negative about. There's always plenty to be negative about. But if you are honest with yourself, I think you'll recognize that things actually aren't that bad, and that you can see beyond short-term obstacles, short-term disappointments, and you can start to see the wider future. And I think that in the first instance, that's something you're going to have to communicate to yourself, and then that's something you're going to have to communicate to other people. I mean, some people are not feeling wonderfully optimistic. They believe that things are going to go from bad to worse, and that's something that you do need to address and perhaps confront. And in the process, you shouldn't feel that you have to do things in the old way. You may have to do things differently. We do have, at the moment, an opposition between the Sun and Chiron. Now, that Sun-Chiron opposition was exact yesterday, but it's still around. And the Sun is in Libra, it's opposition Chiron. And perhaps that is encouraging you to do things differently. And perhaps you need to do things differently in order to shake people up. Perhaps people have got too used to you. They've got used to your behaviors, and they've perhaps taken you for granted, and same old Libra, doing things in the same old way, and then you do something unexpected. And that can change everything. And I think it also goes back to what I was saying about you having a fundamental optimism. If people don't understand what the future can be like, maybe you have to do things differently to really demonstrate that the present, the past is not something fixed, that it can be changed. And so the future has many possibilities. And I suppose the first possibility is perhaps you yourself, if you can demonstrate change in terms of how you are behaving, then you are sending out a perfect example, and in a way you are leading. Yeah, you are leading by example. Now, we don't just have the Sun opposition Chiron, we also have Venus opposition Uranus. Now, that Venus opposition Uranus is actually exact if you're in Australia or New Zealand or East Asia. It's perhaps a feature of yesterday if you're elsewhere, but still, I think that Venus Uranus is still very much in operation. And of course, that Venus Uranus is important to you because Venus rules Libra. And so that's further evidence, Libra, that you can shake things up and get people to think about things in a different way. Even if other people aren't important, you can shake up your own ideas. Perhaps there is something trying to get out. If you are excessively negative, I mean, I'm not saying you are, but if you happen to be excessively negative and you're finding it difficult to bring your fundamental optimism out, maybe you just have to do something dramatic in your own world. Just prove to yourself that you can do things differently. Be an example to yourself. And I suppose you perhaps can look at yourself in different ways. I suppose, you could say you've got a higher self, or you've got a sort of a lower self, or different selves, and you've got one part of yourself which is completely tied to the past and is completely resistant to change. So maybe it's one side of who you are demonstrating to another side of who you are, what is actually possible, and that might be the way forward. Scorpio, the Sun is still square Mars. It was square Mars yesterday, and it's still square Mars today. And at the same time, from a heliocentric perspective, we have got a conjunction between Mars, your ruler, and Jupiter. So there is a lot going on, and there is a lot of energy flying around. And I think that you're someone who, at the moment, is able to make things happen. I mean, you might not want to make things happen. You may be, I suppose Scorpio is a fixed sign. Scorpio can be set in its ways, doesn't want to create change. The way you are may not be great, but who wants to get involved in the future? The future is just too complicated. But there are things happening now, and I do think that you need to respond, and you need to consider the possibility that you can be the person that is actually making things happen. So, Scorpio, you are dynamic. You can be dynamic, and I think in a sense you are expected to be dynamic. So it's important you don't keep things to yourself. And in particular, if you are angry or annoyed about the way things are going or the way things are not going, then don't keep it to yourself, because it's a time to be open about your impatience. You might think it's a waste of time, but it's not a waste of time. As soon as you make it clear that you want results, you expect things, then I think the world will just get out of your way, or indeed may cooperate. And that heliocentric Mars-Jupiter conjunction, I do think that is important. That Mars-Jupiter conjunction is quite universal. It's a heliocentric aspect, and not everyone is in tune with it, but I think you are in tune with it. And so what you can do is you can take the energy that is sort of buzzing through the solar system with that Mars-Jupiter conjunction, and you can bring it down to Earth, and you can make it part of who you are, part of your self-expression. So I think that that's something that you perhaps need to do. Of course, you need to do it your way. You need to do it the Scorpio way, And I'm not going to tell Scorpio what that way is. I'm not a Scorpio. I don't understand Scorpios because I'm not a Scorpio. I mean, it's true that both my parents were Scorpios, but and my brother is a Scorpio and my sister's a Scorpio. So I've had Scorpios in my family, but I don't fully know what it's like to be a Scorpio. But you do have something at your disposal, Scorpio, which you really can use. And we've also got this T-square with Sun opposition Chiron with Mars on the T. Mars is on the Sun-Chiron midpoint. And over the next few days, Mars is actually, I think, going to be getting closer to the Sun-Chiron midpoint. And so Mars is going to encourage you to act in a way that is very individual. It's not about following existing conventions, and also just this belief that if something has to be done, it has to be done. And there is a sense of obligation here, which I think many Scorpios will be feeling, or indeed perhaps should be feeling. The feeling that no one else is going to do it. It's got to be down to you. And I think Scorpio, in that sense, there may be a certain sense of responsibility. Sagittarius, the moon is going to go into a fire sign soon. And I think if you're a Sagittarius, that does matter. There is nothing in fire at the moment, at least from the perspective noon New York. Now, late in the day, the moon does go into Sagittarius. In fact, this afternoon, if you're in the Americas, the moon goes into Sagittarius. This evening in Europe, late this evening in Europe, the moon goes into Sagittarius. Okay, tomorrow, if you're in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, that's when you start to experience the moon going to Sagittarius. But it does happen at a certain stage. So with the moon going to Sagittarius, sorry, did I say Sagittarius? Let me start again. Moon going into Aries. That's what I meant. Moon is about to go into Aries. And so moon going into Aries from a Sagittarian perspective is good news, because Aries is a fire sign. And this is, in a way, it may be that you feel you're waiting for the moon to go into Aries. You want it to happen, and you may not even perceive it in an astrological sense, but it may just feel that the time is not right. And so you may just be pausing. Now, when the moon does move into Aries, Sagittarius, I think that is going to be a boost for you. And I'll be talking about that in detail tomorrow. But I just wanted to mention that, because if you do feel that nothing is happening, then just don't worry. It is about to change. And in fact, the moon goes into Aries if you're in the Americas this afternoon. So if you are in the Americas, then this afternoon there could be an important change. It just might feel that suddenly things start to move, and suddenly you start to feel a lot more confident, and you're not going to feel that you just have to sort of protect yourself, stay in one place. I mean, in a way, that's not very fitting for a Sagittarian to stay in one place for too long. But there may be a tendency to do that. But anyway, change is certainly on the way. And at the same time, Sagittarius, you're starting to get a feeling of your own authority and power. And perhaps recently you may have felt that you'd been somewhat neglected, or hadn't you haven't been treated properly, or people have disregarded your opinions. That's possible. And it seems that you're now not just aware of it, but you're starting to think about what you can be doing, what you should be doing, and you're starting to get a sense of the way things should be organized and the way things should be run even. And at the moment it's sort of a thought, but there is a little bit of inspiration behind it. You look at things and you're thinking, this isn't right. People are making a mess of it. But you could do it better. And it's now a feeling that's becoming increasingly strong. And I do think that over the next few days, you're actually going to have an opportunity to actually act on that feeling. So I think that is something perhaps to look forward to. Another thing I should point out is that the Sun trine Jupiter aspect, which was exact yesterday, that's still very much in operation. And so with that Sun trine Jupiter aspect, it's quite a sociable aspect. And I do understand that many Sagittarians may want to keep a low profile today, but there are certain people who I feel very confident you can benefit from. So do work out who they are. It's ideally going to be people that you don't have a strong connection with. They don't necessarily know very much about you. And there's just going to be just an ease, the kind of ease you have when there isn't much history. Someone who knows a little bit about you, but they don't really know your deep secrets. And just by being with those kind of people, then I think that you can be given a real lift, and I think you can give them a lift as well. I think that you actually have a good understanding of what people want and what people want to hear, and so you do need, I think today, just a bit of fun and relaxation, and I think there are other people who can provide it. Capricorn, you feel that if you were to be open and honest, you might get a negative reaction. That does seem to be a little bit of a concern. So you may feel that it's best to just hold off. Just allow things to develop, but don't get involved and don't necessarily take too much responsibility. And I understand that. I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with that. And I think that another issue you might feel is that not everyone is particularly reliable. There is a conjunction between the Moon and Neptune. We have had a conjunction between Moon and Saturn. I don't think it's much of a problem with Moon and Saturn because Saturn is your ruler, but this Moon-Neptune conjunction, indeed we could say you've got Moon on the Saturn-Neptune midpoint. And so there is some danger that certain people are just not helpful. They make you nervous. They don't seem very sure of themselves, and you might be of the opinion that you should just let them get on with it and just not get involved with their various complications. Why bother? Why make your life more complicated? And I do think that approach is completely reasonable. But you need, though, to perhaps have a higher opinion of yourself. I think there is a certain tendency today for Capricorns to be doing themselves down, taking the view that maybe they're not good enough, or there's something about you that you feel gives you a disadvantage. I don't know what this is about, but it is real, and it is, I think, not just a figment of your imagination, but it is also, I think, the reverse of the case. So, in fact, there are things about you, Capricorn, which are very spectacular and will get noticed. And you're looking at them in a kind of a mirror kind of way, and you're seeing it in the reverse. So you're seeing what's good about you in a negative sense. You're taking, maybe people are not going to be interested in you. People are going to be put off. And so that may be part of why you have a certain reticence when dealing with other people. But you can be, you should be very confident today. I mean, I don't think you will be confident simply because of the way you're perceiving things. But you can be confident, and you should be confident, Capricorn, because, right now, I do think that you do have a great deal to offer, and the question is, how do you get what you have to offer? How do you get it out into the open? Because not everyone understands you, and so perhaps you have to choose your company very carefully, and I think that is something you can do. There is a trine between the Moon and Venus, and so with that Moon trine Venus, I think that it's a serious trine. It's in water signs, Moon in Pisces, trine Venus in Scorpio, but it does have an impact on you, and there are serious people out there who really do appreciate you. And this isn't just about relationships, it's also about what you're trying to achieve, and in terms of, I don't know, career and business and that kind of thing. Not everyone can be relied on, not everyone can be trusted, but some people certainly can be trusted. And if you can find people who have a serious approach, who are prepared to listen to you and not just fly off on their own tangents, then I think that that's a situation that you can benefit from. So I understand there is a temptation to withdraw, but I think that you're perhaps overestimating how difficult the various issues are. I don't think it is that difficult, and you just have to make the right choices and find the right people. And it's just also important to have a very high opinion of yourself. I know one is not supposed to have a high opinion of yourself under normal circumstances. One is supposed to be modest, but today, Capricorn, modesty is not your friend. Aquarius, you feel that you do have something to offer, something important to offer, but at the same time, you may not be quite sure how you can do it. It just seems that there is a certain lack of understanding and a lack of receptivity. Is that a word? People just don't seem to be responsive to who you are, and it may be the case that you're overthinking the matter, or perhaps you're just overfeeling it. I think, by Aquarian standards, your emotions are perhaps stronger than usual, and when you're dealing with a situation which is heavily emotional, you just might not really understand how to respond to it, and you might perhaps reach the wrong conclusions, or just decide that the whole thing is just too complicated. And so, because of this theory you might have that things are too complicated, you might decide that the best option is perhaps to do nothing, or else to concentrate on things which you can do in your own way, and you don't need other people's help. So that might be an approach that certain Aquarians might feel. Now, you do have perhaps something in common with Capricorns at the moment. And, Capricorn and Aquarius, two signs, both ruled by Saturn. And there may be a certain sense, Aquarius, that you have a passing low opinion of yourself. It's just passing. And you might think that people are not interested in you. People may even respond negatively to you. Maybe it's something you say, maybe it's something you wear, something, the way you look like. It could be something like that. And it's completely unreal, and it's a complete figment of your imagination. And, as I was saying to Capricorns, Capricorns do need to have a high degree of self-confidence, even an exaggerated degree of self-confidence. And I think I would say the same to you, that it's just important to really believe in yourself, and to believe that you are coming across in a powerful way, and in a powerful and an attractive way. So try to do that. Try to give yourself that boost, because it is real. You don't want to get overly influenced by all this stuff in water signs. It's just getting too much, Aquarius, and all these emotions flying around. You might reach conclusions which are just completely wrong, and you might do yourself down, and your confidence could be undermined. But and it's all so unnecessary, because right now you are appealing, you are attractive, and it's quite obvious that you have something to offer. And at the same time, Aquarius, you've definitely got something to say. Absolutely, you've got something to say. And you can say it using words which are powerful, meaningful, precise, and targeted. And so it's not like me, going all over the place, rambling away. Not like me at all. You can be very precise. You don't have to use that many words. You don't have to speak in many disjointed paragraphs, when you can actually just say 3-4 words might be all that matters, and you will immediately make your point. People will understand, and I think in most cases, you really are going to get your way. And I think, Aquarius, if you make the effort, you can be extremely persuasive. And so it's so important, Aquarius, that you really do have loads and loads of self-confidence. You might not feel that it's getting anywhere. You might feel you're deluding yourself. You might feel that you might be a bit boastful, but it doesn't matter. Be self-confident, and then, see what happens. Pisces. So Pisces, we've got the moon moving through your sign. It's actually coming to the end of your sign. In Australia and New Zealand, the moon is kind of still in mid-Pisces, but the moon is making a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces, and that Moon Neptune conjunction in Pisces can make you a little bit deceptive. I think it's going to be very difficult for people to work out who you are, and this can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, there's a possibility that your intentions and your motivations are completely misunderstood. And that could be very disconcerting. And you might have to explain yourself because people just don't understand. On the other hand, it's possible, Pisces, that you want to keep some of your motivations to yourself. You don't want people to know. Or you may even want to mislead. You want people to have the impression that you're one thing when actually you're something else. And so if there's anything you want to hide, then now might be a great time to do it. And I think that you'll be very good at managing the impressions that people have of you, because Venus is starting to move towards a trine of Neptune in Pisces. Now that Venus trine Neptune, I think is exact tomorrow, but you're still feeling it with that Venus trine Neptune. And so with Venus trine Neptune, I think that you're going to be quite smooth, and people will listen to you, and people will give you the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think that you'll be attracting too many questions. And if you are asked questions that you're not very comfortable about, you'll be able to dodge the questions. I suppose you can lie if you want to, but I don't want to encourage anyone to lie. But if you feel you need to mislead, then Pisces, I do think that that is something that you are going to be able to do. And at the same time, the Sun is still making a trine to Jupiter. And that Sun trine Jupiter, it kind of is more of the same. I mean, the Sun trine Jupiter, Jupiter's in Gemini, Jupiter is your ruler, and Sun, it's being trined by Sun in Libra. That Sun trine Jupiter allows you to come over as being very positive and very definite, but at the same time, it's all words. It's just words, and it keeps the real you completely secret. So yeah, you can say a lot, but it's just words, and you can use words to fend people off, and most importantly, that part of you which is really really private, that part of you that you don't want people to know about, you can keep it safe and secure, but at the same time it is your power source, and you're able to use that power source to, in a way, get what you want. So overall, Pisces, I do think that it looks like a day when you have a considerable amount of control, but it's done in a way that is not controlling at all. No one suspects it, and people take you how you want to be, however you want to appear. That's what people will respond to. So in that sense, it looks like a day when, you're in control, and I think it looks like being a very good day. And that's it. Those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. And I now want to look at today from the viewpoint of the I Ching. So I ask the question, what is Tuesday going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got, indeed the only hexagram I got, was hexagram number 15, modesty. Doesn't move. No moving lines. So the hexagram is locked. And that might indicate that today not much is going on. There's no movement. And so that might be a bit of a relief, though if you were looking for excitement, maybe not. But anyway, modesty does give us an idea about how we should conduct ourselves. And it's basically saying that it's not a time for showing off. It's a time for being absolutely genuine about who we are, and really for focusing on who we are. And one of the advice the I Ching gives about modesty is that certainly I think it's the Wilhelm translation, says that we should increase what is good and reduce what is bad. In other words, we should consider what works for us and what is working for us, and we should strengthen it and give it a boost. And if something is really a waste of our time, it's not going anywhere, then we should let go. We have to be authentic. Yeah, authenticity really does matter with this hexagram. And we certainly shouldn't be worrying about adornments or trying to pretend that we're being someone we're not. And I think this also reflects how we should consider other people. That's what we should expect. So with modesty, when we're dealing with people, we need to ask ourselves, who is this person? And we're not going to be fooled by adornments, by fancy words, claims, I suppose expressions of wealth. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what car someone is driving. Doesn't matter what kind of apartment or house someone is living in. It's all about authenticity. And our goal perhaps is to really get down to sort of considering who we are actually dealing with. And I think it was yesterday when I did the I Ching, one of the hexagrams I got was, I think, corners of the mouth. And with the corners of the mouth, that was about judging people by what they eat, what makes someone happy. And that gives us this idea of authenticity. So we may get we get a sense that perhaps the corners of the mouth is running into today, which is modesty. We don't want affectations, and we can perhaps, I think, see through affectations. Now, there is a nuclear hexagram to modesty. So this is kind of the hexagram underlying the main hexagram. And I look at the nuclear hexagram when I've got a locked hexagram, because there's not really very much to work on if I only have a single hexagram. So I'm trying to get some more information here. And the nuclear hexagram, remember the nuclear hexagram, you knock off the top and bottom lines, and then you look at the middle 4 lines, and you make the top 3 of the middle lines the top trigram, the bottom 3 the bottom trigram. So the nuclear hexagram is deliverance. So deliverance represents some kind of escape. It seems that we might be in a situation where something is not right, and we need to get away from it. There's deliverance. That's the nuclear hexagram, deliverance. And so perhaps we may just be in a situation that we are not entirely comfortable with. We want to get away from this particular situation. And modesty might be a way of escaping. But if we can just be completely authentic, then that's the way to escape. Or maybe it's the deliverance is underlying our modesty. So sometimes we just feel completely confused. We don't know where we're going. People have all sorts of ideas, and we don't know where we're going. We're feeling uncomfortable. We may even feel a little bit unsafe. And we realize that in order to sort the situation out, we just have to be true to ourselves. The adornments have to go. All the concerns about how much money we've got, where we live, trying to pretend to be someone we're not, that all has to go. We have to be completely real, and we're being real because that's how we're responding to the times in which we live. It is no longer a time when we can have affectations, when we can pretend to be someone we're not. And perhaps that's why it is so important to be modest. And so that's the way through it. But I don't think it's going to be an exciting day. I don't think it's going to be a day of great drama. Just if we keep things simple, and that is, I think, the way to be. And now I want to look at the horoscope of Vem Miller. So Vem Miller was this man who was arrested, I think in California, around a Trump rally, and he had guns and passports in his car. And at first there was talk this was a potential third assassination attempt on Trump, but he's out on $5,000 bail, and if he really was an assassin, he wouldn't be out on $5,000 bail, I don't think. And it seems that he had particular ideas about society, and he was a member of the Sovereign Citizen movement, and clearly got a lot of attention. So I think I just want to look at his horoscope and see what we can find. Now, there was a video by, I think, a sheriff was talking about the event, in which a sheriff mentioned his birthday, which is October the 26th, 1974. So that's a chart I got for. Now, I've no idea when he was born, and I don't even know where he was born. I heard he was residing in Las Vegas, so I set it for Las Vegas. Because I don't have a time of birth for him, it doesn't really matter. The chart is not going to be that different whether I set it for Las Vegas or New York or Los Angeles. It doesn't make a big difference. So I've just set the positions of the planets for noon to just get an idea of who we're dealing with, this man, Vem Miller. And he's a Scorpio, and it's a bit of a super Scorpio, really, I think. Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because he's got this Mercury-Venus conjunction at 0 degrees Scorpio. So it's possible, for example, that he may have Mercury in Libra. I mean, that is possible. I mean, let's for example, let's make a change to that chart. If we make him, say, born at 11 p.m. Let's see what happens. You see, if he was born very late in the day, then he would have his Mercury is in Libra. So his Mercury could be in Libra, and let's make it very early in the day just to see. Then Venus is in Libra. So in fact, we don't really know what signs his Mercury and Venus are in. I mean, we know he's got a Mercury-Venus conjunction. We know that one of Mercury and Venus is probably going to be in Scorpio. So there's a bit of a problem there, but it is kind of interesting that you have this big conjunction here in Scorpio. This is clearly someone who, in a way, takes himself quite seriously, but there is an issue here when you've got Mercury combust Sun. If Mercury is combust, then that may say something about the way a person thinks, the way they process information, and there may be an objectivity issue. So it's possible with Sun-Mercury conjunction, particularly if Sun and Mercury were both in Scorpio, that a person would be easily dazzled or easily distracted. And clearly he has some views which are not exactly mainstream, and he is on the right, and he has a conjunction between Mars and Uranus, and there it is, a pretty close conjunction between Mars and Uranus. And that conjunction between Mars and Uranus, you could associate that with firearms. I mean, I don't know to what extent he was into firearms. Maybe he wasn't into firearms at all. But Mars-Uranus can also be about dramatic action, someone who does have the capacity to do things which are dramatic. I suppose driving close to a Trump rally with guns, with passports. I mean, this might be Mars-Uranus conjunction just overreacting to the situation. So that's certainly a possibility. And Moon in Pisces. I mean, I know he's got Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Pisces. So here is someone who is very much influenced by whatever is going on around him. You know, it can be very nice having all those planets in water signs. I mean, it's kind of interesting that here's someone with so many planets in water signs. It was certainly got, well, we don't know about his Mercury and Venus, but he's certainly got 4 traditional planets in water signs, probably 5, maybe even 6. And it's interesting that he's got involved in this escapade at a time when there is so much in water. He's really picking up on it. But you know, if you've got all those planets in water, you know, we are living in a very complicated environment here. There's all sorts of tensions in the world, and of course in America. And so someone with a lot of water is certainly going to be picking up on those tensions and is going to be responding to them. And he's going to sort of glom onto things. So perhaps glom onto things about concerns about the state, perhaps getting focused on individual rights and the sovereign citizen movement. I think the sovereign citizen movement, I think they had this sort of area that they wanted to regard as being their own. I know, that is quite a common theme in America, the survivalists and people wanting to live apart from society. So he is picking up on that all. And so those are some of the themes of his chart. It's a shame I don't have a time of birth, don't even have a place of birth. Neptune in Sagittarius, conjunct the North Node. I suppose you could say the Neptune is the right direction for him to go in, but just because you've got Neptune conjunct the North Node doesn't mean you're going to be able to use the Neptune symbolism always in the right way. He's just gone for one aspect of the Neptune symbolism. Maybe it would have been better for him to have focused more on the spiritual side of things rather than worry about sort of right-wing politics and right-wing fears. So that's his chart, and the question is, what was happening at the time of his arrest. So he was arrested over the weekend. I think he was arrested maybe around 5 p.m. I don't know if I got that time exactly right. And so let's look at the transits for when the arrest happened. Now, his moon is in Pisces, that's for sure. And you could say that Saturn is maybe conjunct his moon. But I'll tell you one thing we can say is that from a Vedic perspective, he has got his moon in Aquarius. Because you basically, to convert sidereal, to convert tropical to Vedic, you take off 24 degrees. So he's definitely got his moon in Aquarius. And at the moment, Saturn, from a Vedic perspective, is in Aquarius. So that means he's experiencing Sadhisati. We don't know the details of Sadhisati because we don't have a time of birth. So Sadhisati in Vedic astrology is the period, it lasts for 7 years, when Saturn is in the same sign as your moon, or in the sign before your moon, or the sign after your moon. Now, in many cases, Sadhisati just doesn't happen. It's not a big deal. I mean, it lasts for 7 years. It happens to all of us. So 25% of our lives are in a Sadhisati period. But that central sign of Sadhisati, when Saturn is in the same sign as your moon, can be difficult for some people. And it seems that for him, he's experiencing Sadhisati. And for him, it seems to be a major Saturn affliction. And perhaps is influencing his behavior and what he's doing, and also how he is perceiving the world. And so that is the broad backdrop, and I think that's something we can be very sure about, assuming we've got this, the sheriff was right, and we've got his date of birth right. So that's one thing going on. Then there's Chiron. So he's coming up to his 50th birthday, and he's got a Chiron return. So he's got his Chiron at 2142, and Chiron at the time of his arrest was 2117. So it is a Chiron return. And so the question is, what does a Chiron return mean? And I suppose you could say that Chiron, I suppose it's a maverick doing something unusual. I mean, he's certainly done that. It is unusual, the contents of his car and what he's been doing. He wants to be different. That might be one aspect of the Chiron return. Or I suppose Chiron return might be, I suppose he could be expressing, some kind of wound. We don't know much about him, but it's clearly a difficult time for him. Sati and yes, his Chiron return. So those are a few things about his transits. He has so at the time. Now there's his Mars-Uranus conjunction. So he has a Mars-Uranus conjunction in Libra at 28 and a half Libra. Now Pluto has just gone stationary direct. So Pluto went stationary direct square his Mars-Uranus conjunction. So Pluto is kind of stirring it up, isn't it? And also look at Mercury. Mercury was at 2842 Libra. So Mercury was right on his Mars, right on his Uranus. So Pluto going stationary direct square his Mercury-Mars conjunction was providing the sort of the broad backdrop, and then Mercury making the conjunction. And indeed, you could say that true Black Moon Lilith was pretty close to the conjunction as well. Mercury was providing the trigger for it. So I think in his case we do have some important transits. So look at Mars. Mars at 20 Cancer is pretty close to his Saturn. So that in the days in the run up to the event, he was feeling a certain amount of frustration, I would have thought. And of course, over the weekend, we started the build up to that Sun Mars square, which was hitting his Saturn. So those are the transits. And then there are his. Well, I suppose I should quickly look at the lunation, the new moon before the event. So there was a new moon on October the 2nd, 2024. I'm not saying that the new moon necessarily impacted him directly. It just tells us what we perhaps already knew. At the time of the new moon, Chiron was at 2145 Aries, so Chiron was really, really close to his Chiron at the time of the full moon. So perhaps that exact conjunction, his exact Chiron return, was locked into that new moon, and that might have sort of encouraged him to do whatever he felt that he needed to do. So looking at the solar arc directions, so remember solar arc directions, he's just about to turn 50, so we move all the planets in his chart 50 degrees. So there are his solar arc directed planets, and there's his solar arc directed Neptune. So solar arc directed Neptune. So his natal Neptune is at 8 degrees 3 minutes Sagittarius. So if we move his Neptune 50 degrees, because he's 50 years old, just about to turn 50, Neptune moves to 28-27 Capricorn. So Neptune is exactly square his Mars-Uranus midpoint. And I think that kind of sums it all up, doesn't it? Neptune is about confusion, not quite knowing what he wants to do and how he's going to do it. He has this Mars-Uranus conjunction, which wants expression. It perhaps has sort of ideas about defense and frustration and violence and threats of violence. And Neptune comes along, and it's somewhat delusional, but it's more than that. Because if you look at his natal chart, in fact, he has got a Jupiter-Neptune square in his natal chart. Now, if you've Jupiter-Neptune square, the Jupiter-Neptune principle is about, what is it about? Jupiter-Neptune is about fantasy, it can be, about having unusual philosophies. Jupiter is about philosophies and ideas, and you put Neptune next to it, and that creates unusual ideas and weird hopes. The idea about, for example, having your own separate country, the sovereign citizen movement, but you can somehow be separate from the rest of the United States, is that maybe a bit Jupiter square Neptune. But this whole Jupiter square Neptune square is moving 50 degrees. So there's his Jupiter. We move it 50 degrees, and it by solar arc direction it moves to 28 Aries. So we move Neptune to 28 Capricorn. So he's got solar arc directed Jupiter opposition his Mars-Uranus conjunction, and we had Neptune square his Mars-Uranus conjunction. So solar arc directions completely show us what happened. I think that's perfect, almost perfect. It strikes me as being pretty good. And so his solar arc directed Jupiter-Neptune square hitting his Mars-Uranus conjunction happened at the same time as he got arrested. Anyway, we don't have his time of birth. I don't think I've got anything more to say about Vem Miller for the moment. So thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. If you enjoyed it and you're not subscribed, I would of course be super grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.